Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, June 10th. E3 is going on as I speak, and so that means there really won't be a lot of games I think that come out on Steam, which is fine, and instead we're going to have a lot of announcements. So it's going to be a little bit of a different experience today as we try to burn through hype announcements and get to the real information here. As far as I'm concerned, I need to just mention a game if it's mentioned, and if it has a release date, and mention that. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. If there's a trailer out, if there's more information about the game out, that's a little bit more on the side of hype than useful information, particularly considering how there were a lot of games that came out last year on E3 that still aren't out, and E3 is just, for the most part, a huge hype machine that doesn't actually lead to any purchasing decisions for at least a decent amount of time. You always see more commercials, you always see more advertisements when a game is about to come out. With the exception of things that say they're out right now, which very rarely happens at E3. I've seen, I think, all of the Microsoft presentation. I think I saw some of the EA presentation. I guess we'll just be playing as Druid or Rogue. We'll try Druid. And then I think I've seen all of the Ubisoft presentation, which I think is the important ones of right now, like that have come out so far. There have been some other presentations, certainly. So this stream in particular is going to be very news heavy and probably very talking heavy, which isn't probably going to be that useful for me per se, because I've been talking quite a bit as I'm trying to finish up the Steam fall list cleanup series, which I'm through games starting with the letter S. I'm up to games starting with the letter S, I believe. Yeah. So that's more than halfway done, but it is also the back half of the letters, which are way longer. S and T are going to be really, really long videos, 3 hours, 4 hours potentially, to go through them. Good news though is that a significant amount of games on the fall list are getting removed, so 6 months from now I probably won't have to cover the entirety of a fall list cleanup in 26 episodes, or if I do it in 26 episodes, it will be considerably shorter episodes. There have been a few episodes where it really has been only about 30 minutes long. If everything got down to 30 minutes or less next time, that would be much more reasonable and considerable. And my standards do feel like they're increasing quite a bit.
Got one! Got one! Nuts to you!
Job done.
Tech Raptor, we'll start with him. I'm glad I got rid of GameIndustry.biz. I don't think I'm going to go back and follow them anymore. I looked at the 40 tweets they put out in between the point I muted them and the next stream, which was, I think, only maybe a weekend at most. And all 40 of the tweets they put out were not really saying any new information, useful information. So mostly my news sources now are Gamatsu and Tech Raptor, which say about the same thing. So we've got a ton of recap things from E3 to cover, and I think mostly we won't be doing a lot of web peek on this stuff because it's going to be short, title based things that I'll just mention, and then that will be that. Seriously? Darn it. TechRep does an article here on Mordhau, M-O-R-D-H-A-U. That's the Chivalry spiritual successor, has sold 1 million units, releases a new patch, and trading cards, I assume on Steam, which is an interesting question, I suppose. If you have to sell 1 million units before you get trading cards on Steam, the answer is almost certainly not. Let's see. Yeah, I've definitely seen games with way less than 1 million units shipped. EA Play 2019 from TechRaptor. The Sims 3 Realm of Magic announced as the next game pack. There was kind of a, I think, pretty long coverage of Sims expansions. I didn't watch the EA presentation all the way through. I got just the gist of it, I think.
Put this apple on your head.
For the wild.
Let's see. Yeah, the next article. These, I guess, will just be in mostly chronological articles. And frankly, let's just save myself some breath. Assume everything I mention is going to be from TechRaptor, and I'll tell you if it's from Gamatsu going forward, because it's almost all going to be TechRaptor, at least today. So we have a EA Play 2019 Sims teams up with the It Gets Better project for Pride content. That's not super surprising. The Sims and the developers, and I guess in a larger sense EA, but mostly just the Sims developer, have been heavily trying to kind of virtue signal as much as actually accomplish anything, because heck, they are just a video game company in general for LGBT issues, not just this month, which is their Pride Month, but also in general. But I think they've been 50-50 on that too, because there have been complaints of some of the things that they've done otherwise. Inherently, I think The Sims is just, Sims 3 in particular, is just not that interesting of a game. And The Sims really has never been that interesting of a game. Next article, we have EA Play 2019 Sims 4 Island Living expansion detailed, including mermaids. So, I didn't even know Sims 4. Is that the current one? I thought it was Sims 3.
Protect the wild.
And then it's important, I guess, to also kind of keep in your head straight that Sim City, which had its own problems, also didn't get a bunch of well reception when it first came out. I'm gonna stick a cough drop in my mouth and hopefully not chew on it, which is definitely not how I usually eat cough drops. So you might hear that rattling around.
Job's done.
Sorry, but I think I pretty well need it today. Next article, EA Play 2019 Madden 20 new mechanics detail, fake pumps, pull downs, and more. So yeah, there's a new Madden. No big surprise there. Madden 20's closed beta is coming June 14th through for the 16th. That's a different article. FIFA 20 highlights new football intelligence and community feedback. So of course there's going to be a new FIFA, and yeah. So EA seems like it's going down the path of what it did last year, which is to barely announced 5 games, and 4 of which are just annualized franchises. It's kind of funny, EA barely puts out any games at all, and yet when they do put out games, they still manage to irritate people. There's another article here, FIFA 20 strafe dribbling and other mechanical improvements. The fact that they're going into such detail in these articles shows that they don't have a lot to say. Another article, EA Play Battlefield 5 announces new core changes. Battlefield 5, potentially. I mean, if they fixed Battlefield 5, I'm not sure it really matters at this point, because the player base rightfully should have long since left that, even if you are a huge fan of Star Wars. And even EA is giving you a decent reason to leave Battlefield and instead play their other Star Wars game that they've announced, which I think is called Fallen Order. Fallen Order, by the way, I saw the trailer of it, looks very much like probably what Floor 1313 would have looked like, except for they've changed the textures in the walls so that you're in a big, in the trailer at least, you're on an open air forested planet surface where it could have easily just been changed to skybox, and so it looks slightly darker, and changed the walls so it looks more mechanical, and it could be the exact same game, and I'm sure some of that is the same game, or I heavily suspect that to be true. At least I really shouldn't be sure. It also strikes me as if Fallen Order is kind of heavily ripping off The Force Unleashed in a lot of ways. Force Unleashed had a force push that you would use to smash in doors and get through them. That's not something I think has ever been shown in any of the Star Wars movies. Yeah, instead, in Star Wars movies, we've seen people try to use the Force to open heavy metal doors, not smash through them and create a hole.
I wonder what this does.
That is something that was a basic ability in The Force Unleashed. The character in the trailer was throwing his lightsaber and making it spin and hit an enemy and bounce back. Again, not something I think I've ever seen in an actual Star Wars movie, but something that was a basic ability. The only ability I didn't see this character in Fallen Order use that was in Force Unleashed was the Force Lightning ability, which might get unlocked much later, or maybe never gets locked because that's a traditionally considered a Sith power. And in all fairness, you can't really bring the Force Unleashed back and try and make that work as a series, unfortunately. And I don't know if EA even made the Force Unleashed, or if this is an entirely different company stealing the ideas. But in the Force Unleashed, you were playing a Star Killer, the secret apprentice of Darth Vader. You really can't do that anymore because the story has moved forward, and they don't want to set it in a time frame when Darth Vader is still alive. So the Fallen Order is taking place, I believe, somewhere between, I think, episode 8 and 9, but it might be somewhere actually between episode 6 and 7 even. Regardless, any of those would be after the Emperor and Darth Vader are out of the picture. And Disney definitely doesn't want to bring back the Emperor or bring back Darth Vader, so they want to move towards whatever news stories they're selling in that universe. And since it is a Disney license, I imagine EA would have to follow that. I saw some people saying that they really didn't like the Force Unleashed, the Fallen Order trailer.
For the wilds.
I really didn't see anything wrong with it. It seemed like a fine trailer to me. So I don't know what their complaint is. The major complaint is that you can make with it is that it's just kind of showing some generic gameplay without telling any story. So this could be a kind of generic game in general, whereas I imagine most people want the Star Wars game to be closer to the Spider-Man game, where it felt very good in the gameplay mechanic and like a long experience, and something that people are going to really appreciate. Moving on, yeah, I'm looking at this article. Battlefield 5 announces new core changes. Let's see. The current rate, they're going to boost the current rate cap from 50 to 500 via a new system called promotions. The experience curve will also reset slightly past every milestone, making earlier ranks easier to achieve before peaking before another milestone. Current experience requirements aren't available. Finally, ranking up to all the way to 500 will earn you roughly 2 million company coin, which is Battlefield's in-game currency. So basically, they're trying to fix all the microtransaction garbage that they had in the game now that they don't really care about the game. And apparently they are also trying to sell a rental server program so you can play private and third party, have private and third party servers. Oh wait, no, actually, as I'm reading this, I'm saying this exactly backwards. It's saying that previously they had a rental server program in previous Battlefield games, and now they're just bringing private games to Battlefield 5, which makes a lot more sense and is much more a realistic thing to do. Like, people would be up in arms with EA if they tried to charge for private games in today's day and age. In the end, though, Battlefield 5 is pretty much dead. Alright, we've got a game on Steam here called CYNK3030. This doesn't look particularly interesting. I might be a little crueler on games that come out on Steam. No, this isn't in English either. It's a $1.79, Russian only. Yep. But yeah, going through the fall list cleanup, it has probably made me pretty cruel and restrictive as far as what's going to make the fall list going forward, which is probably a very good thing. Gamatsu has an article, Battlefield 5 2019 roadmap announced new maps, Pacific Theater, and more. So they're adding more content to Battlefield, not Battlefront, which is the military one. Little bits of information here and there.
I will fight with honor.
I suspect there is considerably less people playing Battlefield than are playing Battlefront, and I don't think a lot of people are playing Battlefront either. Unfortunately, I think both of these games are AAA first-person shooters, and they still probably sucker a decent number of people to play them. The Scum virtual machine, Scum VM, and put out an announcement that they have like a working Switch homebrew app. They may have already had one, but apparently it's been updated. No, apparently this is the first one to be done. Of course, you'd still have to like mod your Switch to run unsigned software, and I don't think the Switch in particular is that unique to give you a different experience playing old LucasArts point-and-click adventure games. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Crossroads Extreme, which looks like a asset flip game. Yeah, does not look like there's really anything here of any interest. Maybe you're controlling the stoplights or something, but $2.99, English and Russian. It would be no surprise to me whatsoever if there is nothing but troll games and low effort games that came out on Steam during E3. Sorry, I couldn't resist crunching the last bit of that cough drop. Usually I just eat cough drops like they're candy, and then they probably don't do any good for actually soothing my voice, or maybe they're not designed to do that in the first place. And they do have menthol in them, so theoretically if I was to eat 60 a day, I'd probably get addicted to menthol. But I'm certainly not up to 60 a day, maybe 6 a day at most. Let's see. Here we have a TechRaptor article. Star Wars Fallen Order gameplay demo. This guy does look very much more clean cut than Starkiller does. You're still fighting guys in like clone troopers, and he has this robot that hangs off his back. But there's really not a lot you can take from any of this. It doesn't. I'm not even sure that it in the demo it directly says that he's in the Resistance, or he might be in some entirely separate organization, or he might just have gotten caught up in some stuff. They do have Chewie, whatever the species Chewbacca is. They do have some of them captured in the mission demo as him freeing them, which I thought, at least at some point, the canon was Chewbacca was the last of his species, and all the others had been rounded up and killed. Maybe that's no longer canon also.
What shall we hunt?
Let's hit that. Says Star Wars, this article says Star Wars Fallen Order takes place after Order 66 has been executed, so he's supposedly, I guess, one of the few Jedi who survived the massacre of Order 66. But he does not seem like he really acts like or looks like a Jedi, so they're kind of building around the concept that's kind of hard to believe. Yeah, but there's really not a lot to say there, and quite frankly, from my perspective, anytime anybody gets involved or hyped with anything Star Wars these days, they're just setting themselves up for some major disappointment down the line. These aren't really... It really isn't a series that
Time waits for no one.
ends up in a satisfactory way.
Got one.
Seriously?
For the wild.
Moving on, we have an article from TechRaptor. Xenoblade Chronicle 2 sells over 1.7 million copies around the world. It's a little surprising to see a more JRPG game sell that well, but that probably has more to do with the fact that I just don't really have a grasp on how well JRPGs sell otherwise. But yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles, I guess, another game on the long list of JRPGs that I'm thinking maybe I need to cover, maybe I don't. Let's see. Is it perhaps better now? No, we still need a Druid or Rogue victory. So either I'm gonna stick with Druid or go to Rogue. I could try Rogue, I guess. TechRaptor has an article here. Elden Ring, From Software's new game with George R.R. Martin leaks. I saw a trailer for this, and it seemed kind of like a story where there's a one ring that controls them all that gets destroyed, and maybe the ring isn't so evil in this story, but it gets destroyed, and that causes trouble. Really, you just see about 3 characters talking about the Elden Ring being destroyed in the trailer, and that's about it. George R.R. Martin stealing the R from Tolkien seems to, at this point, have come out very obviously as obsessed about copying and cloning the success of Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, and the comparisons are not likely to be favorable in my assumption here. He hasn't finished the Song of Ice and Fire series, so unless he fixes that and makes people very happy with that, he really shouldn't be in any way suggesting or helping other developers develop other things. And I know video game stories suck compared to books or movies in a lot of cases, most cases. In the end, George R.R. Martin is not going to be the replacement of Tolkien unless he goes his own way and does something new and unique. Yeah, that's not what it seems like is happening here.
I'm up to no good. Me too.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called The Bar, which looks like an RPG Maker game. Let's see, $2.99 English only. Yep, not making it to the fall list. The games that I'm covering right now kind of happened right at the beginning of E3. It's pretty much stopped since then. And I wouldn't be super surprised if Steam themselves said, "Hey, just don't put out any games right now. It's just not going to be worth your effort. Just force a stop of publishing your game."
Justice is mine.
Like, I could not, in my mind, ever imagine some kind of counter programming to E3 or some kind of game coming out during E3, unless it's a game that's announced at E3 and then immediately released, which I guess does happen, so I guess Steam wouldn't want to do that. The Borderlands 2 DLC came out for free on Steam. I've gotten it. I don't know if I'm ever going to get around to playing it.
Is mine.
It does have a nice feature to bump you up to level 30, but quite frankly, it needs a feature that would bump a new character up to level 50 or 60, close to the max level, not halfway through the max level. You still, even at level 30, would probably have to play through the entirety of Borderlands 2 to get to max level. But it's nice that they at least thought of that somewhat.
I'm ready to learn. Evil is done!
TechCraft has an article here. No Shenmue 3 is not coming to Xbox One. Instead, it is a Epic Store exclusive, even though it was kickstarted and promised not to be.
Welcome to the show.
Promised, I think, to come to Steam. So there's been some more information that's come out since this article, so we'll talk about this later. But yeah, Shenmue is maybe one of 2 games that have come out during E3 as Epic Store exclusives, and people not particularly happy about that, as is normal for any Epic Store exclusives.
Oh, up to no good.
This guy's toast.
Let's see.
Job's done.
TechCrafter has an article here. 11-bit studios Frostpunk and Moonlighter are coming to EA Access. This is not super important information in the middle of E3, but it is actual news if you have EA Access. Gamatsu has an article. Marvel's Avengers game will be released on the PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Stadia. Is this the card game from Second Dinner? I don't believe it is. I believe this is the Crystal Dynamics game and Eidos Montreal game. That's probably going to be a fighting game. Let's see.
From nothing.
Discover a spell. There. Put 4 copies of that in there. Do that.
Justice is mine.
Job's done.
Gamatsu has an article. Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avengers 9 has an interview with the president at the Bit 7 Summit 7 Spirits event. So I guess we have maybe a little bit of interview still from the Bit Summit 7 event, but it doesn't seem like there's this is an actual interview. One of the questions is, can you talk more about the Galgun situation? Which the Galgun situation, I assume, is that Galgun 2 had to be slightly more censored for PlayStation 4 release than the original game that had only come out about a year earlier. So So yeah, probably not a Galgun 3 on the in the works, unless they just go straight PC, which they may very well do, or straight PC and Nintendo Switch. Kama Sutra has an article here. Lawsuit alleges that the Unity CEO sexually harassed the former vice president. This is a lawsuit filed at the San Francisco Supreme Court on June 5th. So that's not good in the grander picture for Unity, but also I guess this is a story that will need more coverage. Speaking of dirty business and dirty laundry getting aired, there, from what I hear, was I want to say Kotaku journalist, but let's just say, for safety's sake, a mainstream video game journalist who has been arrested and caught soliciting underage prostitution, for lack of a better term, soliciting the younger girl that he thought he was going to meet up with in a sting was 8 years old, and I believe the older sister that he thought he was going to meet up with was 11. So this is not the case of, oh, she was 17 and she told me she was 18. This is below, at least one of them below the age of 10. Fortunately, it seems that, at least as far as the sting was concerned, no actual children were involved, although during the transcript of these chat messages that have been filed in the court case, he claims to have already been abusing another kid. What's interesting about the story, and it I think can only be labeled as cronyism, is while this is not really video game news, it is also a example of the mainstream video game media not keeping its own house clean and denouncing people when they are accused of things, or seemingly in this case clearly guilty of things. And so this is just not being reported at all, and I have to say that's cronyism. If you don't say it's cronyism, then you go into tinfoil hat theory and say, oh well, then they're all guilty of it, and it's downright conspiracy. It's just an entire pedophilia ring amongst the mainstream video game journalists, and that's far too tinfoil of a hat of a theory to take as truth. But there definitely is a lack of professionalism in video game journalism on many fronts, and that's something that consumers of video game reviews and consumers of video games should demand more of. And it is definitely a double standard for so many people at sites like Kotaku to complain about anime girls showing cleavage or panties, or even full nudity of anime girls that don't exist, when amongst their ranks there is a person who is actually attempting to solicit underage real people. That is definitely a double standard to overly cover the fake anime girls and not cover at all the real world situation. This lawsuit against the Unity CEO too feels like it might get hushed up, frankly. We'll see if there's any more bits of information. I suppose as long as the Unity CEO is not like Randy Pitchford, the CEO of Gearbox, and he doesn't just tweet a lot and make a lot of noise, this might not produce a lot of news except for the court records. but somebody should be covering this story until that case is fully settled. And this again might be an example of a real injustice that happens in the video game work environments that that people should fight against. Now, if it's a CEO versus a VP, unionization wouldn't really touch either one of those employees anyways, because they're both management. But certainly I could see a union putting out a strongly worded message of support or denouncement if they believe the accusations to be accurate. Add a lackey, deal 2 damage. Let's see. So if this is 0, let's see if that, no, it'll be 1 mana. Darn, I was hoping it would be 0 mana because it was 0 to summon it. Moving on, TechCraft has an article here. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus is coming to North America's PlayStation 4. This is this player versus player game, it seems like. Is this a fighting game or is this a JRPG? I'm gonna watch this trailer. Really don't have time to be watching trailers, but I'd like to know what this is. I would have sworn that Grand Blue Fantasy would have been a JRPG. This is really smoothly animated, this cutscene I'm seeing. Probably in a way that oversells what the game could possibly be. It's an Arc System Works game. So yeah, it looks like it really is a fighting game. A sword fighting game, interesting. But I would want to know if this has a single player experience to it. And they're certainly tying this into some heavily animated cutscenes that I imagine you won't watch except for in the story mode. Interesting. This is definitely an interesting concept of a game, maybe not a game that actually works in practicality because of just a lack of what am I trying to say here? It might be a lack of player base for something like this, or a lack of variety in the characters.
Behold the cosmos.
So I'm still very lost as far as what fighting games are good or important or relevant, and what games are not that important.
I got the best deals anywhere.
Let's see.
Justice is mine.
Job done.
TechRaptor has an article here. Destiny 2 going free to play. New expansion Shadowkeep details revealed. This is what the rumors said, and I didn't believe them, but I guess now we can take it as truth. The game is going free to play on September 7th with a new expansion Shadowkeep is released. More specifically, the core game of Destiny 2 is going free to play and changing its name to Destiny 2 New Light. This version will feature all the one-year content freely, including foundational modes, activities, and rewards. You can see a screenshots of the Engadget leak here. let's see. Last November, Bungie gave away the game for free on PC, so this new move to free-to-play builds on top of that, which basically means everybody who actually paid for Destiny 2 were paying to be in what amounted to an early access beta test, for lack of a better term. They pretty well got screwed. Let's see.
Quickly.
Job done.
Yeah, this is gonna work pretty well if I can survive the next turn. I can't really imagine that anybody actually would want to play Destiny 2 if you haven't played Destiny 1 and already halfway through playing all of Destiny 2. I think Destiny as a series is pretty dead. The dream, the hope of a game that could just be a service forever and constantly get updated is what Destiny was trying to sell in Destiny 1, and they failed miserably at that. Meanwhile, World of Warcraft is exactly that kind of game, and you can see how that happened very easily, just out of Warcraft. I'm sure there's plenty of other MMOs that didn't survive as services forever. Let's go back to playing as Druid. Maybe I should also switch to casual, but let's face it, there's a bunch of news to talk about. TechRaptor has an article, free Borderlands 2 DLC leak connecting the story to Borderlands 3. The thing this doesn't do, unfortunately, is I don't think it lets you play as the characters from Borderlands 1, which is what I would have liked to see happen. So it kind of makes me assume that you're not playing as the characters from Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 3 either. In fact, that's pretty much been confirmed. So you can't play as your character you played as in Borderlands 1. You can't play as the character you played as in Borderlands 2. You're going to have to start a level 0 character when you jump into Borderlands 3. And that doesn't feel great at all. If you just want to play more Borderlands 2, this free DLC puts the level cap up to 80 with an automatic boost to level 30. So you're still... That's a considerable difference there. And I could get it since one of the characters in Borderlands 1 somehow gets killed in Borderlands 2. I could understand not letting people play as him, but the other three characters are still around. Although, in all fairness, it seems like Lilith is really the only main character coming back in Borderlands 3 from what it looks like in the trailers. And an interesting thing was said in one of the trailers I saw. She mentioned that there were only 6 sirens in the universe, and then she goes, I used to be one of them. So either she has lost her siren ability, which makes no sense, and maybe that gets explained in this DLC, and I don't know how you would lose your siren ability, because it seemed like it was something you were born with, or if that's some way in an adaptation or an idea that there are now more sirens in general. It seems like from the trailer I was looking at for Borderlands 3, there is this child siren character that's not one of the playable characters, I don't think, that is being trained by Maya, the siren character from Borderlands 2. But then there is also an adult siren character that you can play as. So, at that route, you have 4 or 5 out of the 6 sirens that were in the universe, and with Angel being the 6th siren, that's every siren that was supposed to be in the universe. In general, yeah. So they're all getting put together in one place, for better or worse. And I guess they want to wrap up that story in Borderlands 3, which is probably fine. But you can't wrap it up in a way in which the sirens die, because they are the mage class of this game. So you've got to end the story where there's a whole bunch of sirens born at the end, which, I mean, that's, I assume, the main story in a nutshell is you're going to be fighting an evil guy who's trying to do something with the sirens. Your solution is going to cast out some alien energy that makes all sirens
Well played.
Makes a bunch more sirens be born, and that'll be the big reveal. Now, the trailer for Borderlands 3 did have a short bit with Claptrap, with his new voice actor in the video, but they didn't do a lot with him. I think they probably still were in a decent position where they could have gotten rid of Claptrap in general. Alright, I guess it's time to move over to the European account. I guess if we get all the daily quests done today, we'll try the single player expansion while I try to cover this news. Yeah, I think once you lose the voice actor for any character, once they leave the company, particularly if you don't have them on contract by the time they leave the country, to say, hey, this is a memorandum of understanding that you would be the first pick as the voice actor for any future games. Yeah, once you had some certainty that he wasn't coming back, you probably should have just killed off Claptrap. And it would have been pretty easy to have him just explode or get shot at the beginning of Borderlands 3 instead of trying to use him. He's been exhausted as a character anyways.
Valera versus Anduin.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Don't Burn, which seems like it's a fairy flying a person that I think is supposed to be a fireman. Although, yeah, this looks a lot like a Game & Watch game. It's really just Arkanoid, though. Somebody has taken the concept of Arkanoid and put a fireman element on it, which is a little creative, but in the end is not a game really worth even 64 cents. English is its only language, so I have to give that one some creativity points, but that's it. Gamatsu has an article. Phantasy Star Online 2 is coming to the West for Xbox One and Windows 10 in the spring of 2020. Apparently Phantasy Star Online 2 has been running this whole time in Japan as a free-to-play, massively multiplayer RPG. It's been on the PS4 and Vita and PC in Japan, so it was successful enough, I guess, eventually. I feel like Phantasy Star Online, though, as a game, probably came out maybe a decade after Phantasy Star Online 1 came out. Like, it doesn't strike me as a game that was 4 years after Phantasy Star 1 for the Dreamcast, and it's just been running this whole time. Now, I don't know anything about the Phantasy Star Online series of games other than the name is recognizable, so I'm not sure how popular it really would be today. I know Phantasy Star Online 1 was popular on the Dreamcast because it was an MMO on a console. One of the first MMOs, if not the first MMO on a console. but that's probably not enough. I imagine, since the Dreamcast really didn't succeed that well, I would imagine that there's not a lot of people nostalgic
Here we go.
for Phantasy Star series. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Project xCloud and console streaming. xCloud seems to be a service that's built on the Windows Azure service, but as far as Microsoft's Xbox is concerned, they're not going to be mentioning Azure. They're only going to be talking about Project xCloud, which lets you stream your games anywhere to phones, tablets, or PCs. They've expanded it now so that you can stream your game from your Xbox One console directly to a phone, tablet, or PC instead of having to stream the game from a server to a phone or tablet or PC. Which might save you a little bit of bandwidth. Stadia, reports are coming out, or estimations are coming out for Google Stadia, that in less than, I think, 3 days, you'd probably eat a bandwidth cap just for all the data you're streaming, if you are living under a data cap, which some people in the United States are. I'm certainly glad I'm not. I would not be able to do what I do if I was. The xCloud services are being presented by Microsoft as if they're a brand new, unique feature, when it really is just Steam Link. It's same thing Steam has been capable of doing, to stream games from your PC to other devices. Maybe Microsoft has some more money in it and can polish it up and make it work a little bit better as a concept, but yeah, in general, it is just something that will probably be built into every console, with the exception of Nintendo consoles in the next generation. I have no doubt that, particularly with Sony working with Microsoft, that the next PlayStation will be able to stream PlayStation 5 games to a cell phone, a tablet, or PC. Well, I have a little doubt there, but not a lot. Next we have a game on Steam called Riverbound, which looks like a Roblox fighting game. I might give this one a chance to put it on the fall list if this is single player. I don't think it is though. $25.
Your back.
99 cents. Play alone or with friends. This does not look like a game worth $25. Yeah, I think this game prices itself out of consideration. Maybe that is another example of me being particularly more stringent on my reviews as far as evaluations of games. I have a ton of duplicate tabs open, I'm sure. Lego announced that they're going to be re-releasing re-releasing all the Lego Star Wars games up until this point and bundling it with some new Star Wars games so that all 9 of the movies will be one game. Now, inherently, if this runs better on PC, that would be better. If it runs better on consoles, that would be better. It says it's all 9 films in one game. I assume that means it's just all the old games with all the DLC and elements combined. But you certainly will have a weird split in that also, because when you're doing 7, 8, and 9, you're pretty much not dealing with the same characters as 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6, and even 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6 are pretty much different characters. And as far as I know, the 9th movie in Star Wars has not come out yet, so this game, this Lego game, may come out right as the final movie comes, the 9th movie comes out. I wouldn't say final. So this might be a case of
Here we go.
it spoiling some of the events of the movie. TechRaptor has an article here. Halo Infinite launches with Project Scarlet. Holiday 2020 is what I believe this is supposed to say. So, while I think in general the Xbox E3 presentation was rather good, there is an element there that was unexpected to me, in that they really didn't bother to talk about new hardware at all, when I thought they would kind of do a lot of that. Instead, they just said it's called Project Scarlet, and there's a little bit of information from their FAQ website, I think, that talks about some of the stats, but they didn't show anything off, and they were as interested in advertising xCloud as they were advertising the new hardware. So it clearly, from Microsoft's perspective, it's going to be 50% streaming services as far as they're focused, and 50% hardware and console sales, which seems in line with the way they've been going, is that they're more interested in selling games than selling hardware. You usually take a loss on the hardware anyway, so maybe they're taking less of a loss by having servers and doing the xCloud streaming things. The Halo Infinite trailer didn't really show me anything of real importance, other than apparently they lost, and this is kind of like a post-apocalyptic Halo universe. But clearly they didn't completely lose, because he was rescued by a human being, and I thought the point of the Halos was to eliminate all life in the universe.
This guy's toast.
So clearly the creators of the Halos didn't have full success. I don't think the creators of the Halos are even still alive. Let's see. I would also very much argue that some of the Xbox announcements and its ups and downs had a lot to do with its partners' announcements more than its actual Microsoft announcements. This is really an example of a lot of people coming together, a lot of companies coming together to make a good announcement, instead of just Microsoft announcing a bunch of games, which they could do. Certainly, they bought a bunch of companies last year, so there could have been beginning trailers and announcements for what each of those companies are doing. And slightly surprising, but when you think about it, not that surprising. Microsoft has bought Double Fine and is now the publisher of Psychonauts 2, which makes a lot of sense because it was Starbreeze who was running out of money and about to go bankrupt that was funding and going to be the publisher for Psychonauts 2. And let's face it, Double Fine has not been making enough money with its products that it's been selling to maintain a company. It just hasn't been making enough products, and it hasn't been making enough successful products. It'll be slightly interesting to see if Tim Schafer works well in that environment, or if we kind of quickly find that
This guy's toast.
Tim Schafer is going to take the money and run and leave Double Fine. Doesn't seem like Fig will be affected by this acquisition, at least from what I can tell. But yeah, I really wouldn't be surprised if
I fight.
the
Hey, lights out.
if Tim Schafer takes the money and runs. Can't play that right now, so
I see red.
it's in the turn. However, this year is definitely different than last year because this was not a concerted effort by Microsoft to say, hey, we've grown our team a lot and we've acquired a bunch of companies. It was just we've purchased Double Fine and Double Fine alone. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were in conversation or after last year's E3 and Tim Schafer said, hey, you bought all these other companies, would you consider buying us too? And it took a year to negotiate that. Moving on, check out there's an article. Tales of Arise has been announced. What is Tales of Arise? I don't know. Let's see. It begins back with the Tales of Fantasia, and it's another Tales series. Oh yeah, it's a Tales series. It's a JRPG. I had to think about that for a second. Let's see. It's supposed to be 4 times more. The Project Scarlet next Xbox, which could be called anything for all we know, is supposed to be 4 times more powerful than an Xbox One X. It's going to come with a fully functional solid-state drive, as well as the capability to go up to 8K resolution with a smooth frame rate of 120 frames per second, which, with consoles supporting that, then makes it feel like this is the beginning of a new TV standard that I don't feel like really exists right now.
Hey, lights out.
I'm not 100% sure, though, if 120 frames per second is something you really need or something that will change your experience by much. Let's see.
Here we go.
I think most TVs will still only go at 60s, and 120 frames per second does meet at a higher frame rate for VR, so they're kind of making it VR compatible. The 8K resolution information, though, is probably just scaling up. I imagine the core resolution, the base resolution, at best is still doing something close to 1440p at best. Heck, if just all games by default on the next Xbox were 1080p by default and then scaled up to 8K, that wouldn't be great, but it would be better than what I've seen in the past.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Hey, lights out. Hey, lights out.
I believe also it's supposed to have, I think I saw on a different story that the Project Scarlet is supposed to have a considerable amount of virtual RAM. The PlayStation 5, I think, is, well, the PlayStation 4, from what I've heard, actually all the RAM on that is like DDR5 graphics RAM, and just a portion of that is allocated to be used as computer RAM. I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly how it's also going to work in the next Xbox. And frankly, for PCs in general, everything probably should be that way too, where the computer RAM and the graphics RAM are very closely tied together. Although that's harder to do in PCs because there's a bigger actual physical distance that actually would slow down the process. Plus, I could imagine plenty of cases where if you're building just a desktop computer for an office, it may only need 2, maybe 4 gigabytes of slow-moving RAM compared to a gaming PC where you'd want. Well, frankly, my next gaming PC, probably I'm thinking 32 gigs of RAM in general, and at least 8 gig of RAM in the video card itself, separately. So if I'm going for larger amounts of RAM, I probably would need to buy slower RAM for the computer, relatively speaking. But because Project Scarlet and the next Xbox, which we'll just call Project Scarlet, I guess, going forward, because it didn't really show off anything,
Here we go.
we don't really know if there's anything new or different being added here. They do have a Generation 2 Xbox One controller that's even more adaptable, which sounds interesting, but I'm sure it'll be even more expensive than the current Xbox One Elite controller, I think is what it's called.
The light protects me.
Ha, this guy's toast.
Fight.
So yeah,
Here we go.
there's a chance the controller might be slightly different. Looking at the way the Elite controller seems to be adding some new features, but it's not really adding any new buttons, and I don't think the button layout's could change too much. Let's see.
I fight. I fight.
And I imagine, well, what the Project Scarlet could really do is they could get away from a large black box if they would do that. It still needs a disk drive, where we are seeing no indication whatsoever that it's not going to require that. But otherwise, I expect it to look a lot like the Xbox One X. It would be nice if they went smaller, though, if they found a way to make it smaller so it would sell better in Japan and other countries like Japan that like small consoles. That being said, I don't think that would really increase sales by much. I think it's just too little too late. Yeah, unless they just paint the next Xbox with anime skins or something and put a major amount of advertising and push towards selling it, I don't see how it sells well in Japan. The door is really open where it could sell well in Japan as potentially more fans leave the PlayStation in the lurch. But I don't think Microsoft will even attempt that. Moving on, Borderlands 3 characters revealed. So here's Maya, the siren from the second game, and here's this kid character. Now we're getting into the danger section here, so she's showing her how to use her siren power. We're getting into the danger point where you very well may have too many kid characters in the game, particularly. Tiny Tina is a unique character because she's a psychopath, and the whole point of the Borderlands world was that she was a psychopath. So I don't know, maybe Maya and this kid character are related, and this is somehow Maya's child. And it's kind of questionable how anybody would live long enough to have a kid on Pandora or in the Borderlands universe before they like
Here we go.
murdered them or got murdered themselves.
I fight.
So yeah, the storyline potentially has a problem here. Seems like some of this trailer was going for that Avengers meme scene where it's all the female characters fighting together for half a second, but then they kind of worked the trailer around so it didn't show that, or they didn't emphasize that too much. The game is coming out 9/13/2019, Borderlands 3, for Epic Store exclusive. Let's see, we already talked about the game, the world premiere of Elden Ring. It's from Hidetaka Miyazaki, and it's being somewhat helped by George R.R. Martin. I imagine they just wanted his name more than anything. It's like, let's talk to this guy and get his ideas and then kind of ignore everything else. And I could see that. It definitely would make sense that to get George R.R. Martin's name on some projects, at least before the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones came out, because that would have sold copies, and it still may sell a few copies of a game that otherwise Elden Ring is probably just a new JRPG game with nothing of real interest to say. Let's move over to casual play. TechRaptor has an article. Crossfire X is coming to Xbox One in 2020. What is Crossfire X? I don't even remember seeing this. It's a before this point PC only first person shooter that has 8 million concurrent players. What is Crossfire X? I must have blinked because I did not even see this trailer. I was mostly paying attention, and this is the problem of E3, is that it takes up so much of your time, even if you're trying not to pay attention to the streams, because the recaps are as long as the presentations, or at least it feels like that. It's not really true. The most forgettable announcement at the Microsoft presentation is probably Forza Horizon 4 LEGO Speed Champions, a combination of LEGO games and Forza. I think it is an expansion for Forza Horizon 4, so you would have to buy the Forza game to have this LEGO Speed Champions element. It's not a standalone experience. And I don't know if Forza people really would want to play that kind of game, quite frankly. It feels like it was an idea that LEGO didn't want to bother doing themselves, or TT Games in particular didn't want to bother doing themselves, so they just licensed it. I know LEGO as a storefront does try to sell a decent amount of cards every year, and they sell a lot of products that are just cars, so I could see why people would maybe be interested in that. There is a whole series of LEGOs with fancy looking cars. it's definitely not my thing though. It's funny, we've seen 2 or 3 presentations of this Elden Ring trailer announcement without showing the trailer. And I'm looking at the trailer now, and yeah, it really doesn't show anything. It shows a weird, like, group of arms holding this, what looks like a detached arm in a circle. And then it shows like a spear, and then there's this like blacksmith creature that's probably breaking the Elden Ring, and that's kind of all you get. It is totally just a teaser, nothing else.
Ha, this guy's toast.
Oh, here we go.
This is a Bandai Namco game, so very possibly Elden Ring is not gonna be that good. No, I was wrong. By far the worst presentation at Xbox was the Gears Pop gameplay demo. It's a game they already announced. I think they own the company that owns Gears of War now, so it makes some sense. But yeah, the Gears Pop game I think is a mobile game anyway, so it being at the Xbox conference is silly. But I guess it's already been announced. They've got to do something with it, so they gave it some time. Arguably, the Xbox conference gave too much time to smaller games when it could have probably focused more on bigger things if they wanted to. But they can't really be called anything but the winners of the big presentations at E3, considering there's no Sony or Nintendo presentation at all to compare it to.
This guy's toast.
Here we go.
Let's see. Yeah. They have a trailer here for the wireless controller, Xbox Elite wireless controller. It's going to have rubberized grips all around the bottom. You can adjust the tension of the control analog sticks. You can adjust to 3 depths on how deep you want the triggers on the left and right triggers to be done. It's going to have a rechargeable battery in it, and it's going to have 3 profiles. So it does seem like it's a kind of major improvement. Maybe the extra flaps that they have around there are now more by default installed in the controller also, so it's not a case of potentially losing those extra flaps.
Desperate seas I roam.
But with the exception of the profile switching button, it doesn't seem like it's adding any more.
Let me go home.
It doesn't seem like it's adding any more buttons, which probably means there won't be any more buttons added to the Project Scarlet controller either, unless the Project Scarlet goes in a completely different direction. I don't think it needs to happen. They had a trailer that really didn't show anything for Gears of War 5. It was just looking at this female character who apparently was in Gears of War 4. I haven't played them, so I don't recognize her. And she has in her head apparently all the characters from the previous series, and the evil queen of the enemy bug creatures is also in her head. And so throughout the trailer, you'll see these heads come out of her heads, while a Billie Eilish, I believe is her name, song that was heavily promoted by YouTube, and that's how I know anything about it, played. And it seemed like the people at Giant Bomb had never heard that song either, or didn't make mention of it. But it's a pretty pathetic teaser. It shows no gameplay, it shows nothing. It probably points towards some major changes for the Gears of War series. But then also there's some Gears of War side games and wave-based games and mini games that were also announced. I'll just, I think, leave it to you to figure out if you're interested in any of that and seek out that information. Let's see, this will happen twice. And then this will happen twice. Because Microsoft bought Double Fine, there was a Psychonauts 2 trailer. I'll skip through it real quickly. I really am not interested in being spoiled on anything of Psychonauts 2. The general idea is still that the main character from the first game is now a actual Psychonaut, and he's doing his job. I imagine that leads to some conspiracy or bigger conflict. Alright, a couple more pirates, a couple more beasts. There was a trailer for the interactive thriller 12 Minutes, which was pretty bad. 12 Minutes is a game that came out, I think, a couple of years ago, or was teased a couple of years ago. It's not actually out, I don't think. You have 12 minutes to solve the mystery and get out of this room that you play the entirety of the game. And if you don't, you'll get murdered by a guy that's coming to basically stab you. And so you're trying to investigate why. When you get murdered, you go back in time and have to do it again. You're trying to investigate why this guy is doing this, what's really going on, what's happening. I am fairly certain that there was at least an RPG Maker looking style game that had the same concept, and maybe it's the same game that's just being polished and redone to look a little bit better, but in the end it's a top-down looking game in one room, and it's all going to be about the story writing and the looping and the dialogue and the story and the interactivity there. I imagine a game like 12 Minutes might only be a couple hours of gameplay before it would get so convoluted or so complicated that it would be super annoying unless you break it down into 6 2-minute sections, and so once you've solved the puzzle, the first 2 minutes you only go back when you die to the first with I guess 10 minutes left. You could do it that way, or you could have 4 3-minute sections and break it down that way, and then there would be a 4-act game, or you could have 3 4-minute sections and make it a 3-act game. But I think also the 12-minute time frame probably is not actually 12 minutes, because 12 minutes would go by really fast. Xbox had a trailer for Wasteland 3. I did not recognize Wasteland as a game series. I recognize the name, but as far as what the game looks like, it seems to be like a top-down twin-stick shooter type game, maybe with some XCOM style gameplay, as best I can tell. I'd have to do some research to even remind myself what the Wasteland series is about. It's another example of a game that Could have had somebody stand on the stage and explain what's going on with the Wasteland series and catch me up. There was a considerable lack of people on the stage talking for the Xbox presentation, which really does make it feel like there's just a lot of games announced. So I've been kind of complaining about there in 2018 and in 2019 there being just way too many games released at the same time. I think this really is another example of the next year, 2020, continuing down that path and having a lot of games that come out. Let's see. Kingdom's New Land is free on the Epic Store. The Epic Store a day ago was having trouble again with multiple Ubisoft titles. Purchases for Watch Dogs 2 were temporarily disabled. So the Epic Store is still having its Epic sale, which ends June 13th, and which pretty much puts it about 9 days from June 25th, which I believe is when the Steam summer sale happens. But yeah, it's not seeming like it's a good showing of running a storefront if you're constantly having problems. I imagine these problems happen on Steam too. It's just a Steam support doesn't tweet about them and admit they happen. They probably just reply to people that complain about it individually so it doesn't show up on their main comments. This would be interesting.
I fight.
Job's done.
Let's see. Another announcement at Xbox was Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I imagine that's the name of it. I don't think Rocks the Dragon in 2020 is more of that. It seemed like this is yet another Dragon Ball fighting game, story-based, that didn't really show any Cell creatures. It seemed like it ended after the Frieza saga, which I guess maybe Kakarot, the main character of Dragon Ball Z, or better known as Goku, maybe he blew himself up when he killed Frieza, and that would have been the first time he died. Of course, he came back to life, so I don't know why you would end the story at his first death. But I suppose it is somewhat accurate to say that the Cell saga didn't as much focus around him alone. But yet another Dragon Ball Z game when you really don't need one. Gamatsu has an article here. Gears 5 launches September 10th. And by the way, if you pre-order, you get the Terminator Dark Fate character. There's some heavy in-game advertising for the next Terminator movie. And so you can play as a skinless Terminator T-1000, I believe, a robot. As just a cosmetic skin change.
Dead or alive.
It's really probably not worth pre-ordering Gears 5 for that reason, but it might be worth it to pre-order Gears 5 if you want Gears 5. There is this escape mode that they talked about where you're going to go in as a different team and then have set a bomb of like a toxic cloud and have to escape. It might be an example of kind of the exact opposite of a battle royale, where you're trying to escape with all your teammates and get to the edge of the map, versus a battle royale where there's usually a wall trying to push you towards the center of the map. Speaking of battle royales, Fallout 76 in the not the Microsoft conference decided to announce a battle royale mode called, I believe, what is it called? I think it was called Shelter 52. And also Fallout 76 is bringing non-playable characters to Fallout 76, which is the thing they were saying that Fallout 76 was so good because it didn't have NPC characters. So yeah, they're doing a basic 180 on Fallout 76, but I think it's too little too late, and the presentation for Bethesda started on those announcements and tried to make it seem like Fallout 76 was way better of a success than it was, instead of just fully admitting that it was a total failure. And like, frankly, if I was doing the presentation, I'm going, we're sorry, Fallout 76 was terrible, we're trying to make it better, let's move on. That's as much as you could really say. But we're still covering the Xbox announcements. Microsoft Flight Simulator was revealed, so another flight simulator, just being called Microsoft Flight Simulator, it seems this time, not 2020 or anything like that. It's just a full reboot of the name, it looks like. Alright.
Here comes the big ass.
Let's see how this works. Well, that worked somewhat well, but not as well as I would have liked. Again, Flight Simulator, not a game that feels like it needed to be shown. They really didn't have anything to show anyways. I think Microsoft probably dropped the ball for a presentation 6 months from now, where they could have shown half of the games and had real trailers instead of just little teaser trailers. They could have talked a lot more about Project Scarlet. They could have announced at E3 that 6 months from now we're going to have a direct stream on Mixer, and promoted Mixer, their streaming service, with more games, and gotten into the habit of doing a Nintendo Direct. They seemed like they felt the need to cram it full of announcements, to the point of having 60 games that they talked about for not really a great reason. It really didn't feel like they needed to talk about 60 games. It could have been easily 40, easily 30, with more detail. And that's really what people want to hear, and what you don't get at E3. In a similar vein, they announced Ages of Empires Definitive Edition, which I believe is Ages of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. I believe Ages of Empires 1 Definitive Edition is already out, and it's coming to PC. Everything's coming to PC pretty much for Xbox. Everything's coming to Xbox Game Pass. Right now you can get the subscription to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which includes the PC Xbox Game Pass, also for $1. At least you could during the presentation. I think that's still available as an offer. So it's a pretty good deal. So much so that it was crashing the website. Alright, so I'm just gonna play as a hunter here and play some beasts. There's not a lot otherwise, I guess, to say about Xbox Games Pass Ultimate. It's probably a decent deal. If that's how you want to deal with things. John Baum was talking about how if you buy the DLC on a game you get from Games Pass, you keep the DLC, but you lose the game when it leaves the Games Pass. But then there's like a discount to buy the game. So they're clearly, if I was gonna do Xbox Games Pass, some research I would need to do, because that sounds a little fishy and weird. I would think if you buy the DLC, the only thing you could assume is that you get the game also, and if you're buying DLC on Games Pass, that probably means you should get the game even if you discontinued Games Pass. Or you get the DLC for free with the Games Pass, which would also make sense, and you lose all of it when it leaves Games Pass. I didn't even really know that the Games Pass cycled games out. I thought it just constantly added things. So I'm really uninformed about how Xbox Game Pass works. It does seem like Xbox Game Pass for Windows will offer different games than what Xbox Game Pass for the Microsoft Xbox is. But maybe they'll eventually sync up. Another game they announced was the Battletoads, I guess, reboot, for lack of a better term. Which, here we're seeing a trailer with a lot of text. I saw some actual gameplay in this game, but apparently this trailer decided not to show any of that. Well, that was pointless. Battletoads doesn't really interest me. It feels like another game that they really didn't need to show off if they weren't going to talk about it some more, or give some more reason as far as why I would want to cover that, play that game. They have had another video of Ori and the Will of Wisp, which launches February 11th, 2020. Take note that this is like one of the few examples of actually having a release date, so actual video game news, versus just hype trailers, which most of these were just hype trailers with no new information about gameplay, no new information about a release date, nothing other than, can we convince you to be so excited about buying these games even though you don't know when they're coming out. And since they came out and said that the Xbox Scarlet is coming out in 2020 holiday, so that's Christmas of 2020. There's a lot of people that are going to have to think about potentially going light this Christmas season and buying fewer games to save up for the potential $300 or $400 console that will be coming out next year. Like, we really have no idea. They said that the Xbox Scarlet will be 4 times as powerful as the Xbox One X. Doesn't that mean it's possibly 4 times as expensive? If that's the case, that's a lot of money. That would be a considerable amount of money. A unrealistic guess, certainly, but I wouldn't be surprised if it approaches double the cost of an Xbox One X, or even if it is just the price of an Xbox One X. Then people have to think, do I want to buy an Xbox One X this Christmas, or do I want to save that money for next year? Gamatsu has another article here. Ninja Theory announces Bleeding Edge for the Xbox One and PC. I don't know where this was announced, though. I guess this was at the Microsoft conference. I don't remember this game though. What was Bleeding Edge? It's like a improvised sword-based fighting game with a bunch of weirdo looking characters. Oh yeah, I remember looking at this trailer now. And I frankly just left me bemused. Is like I have no idea what I'm looking at all. Seems like it kind of feels like it might be an Overwatch attempt at a clone. But yeah, we'll see if Bleeding Edge succeeds. My guess is no, it won't. Let's see.
Until low.
The Outer Worlds launches October 25th for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. I'm pretty sure The Outer Worlds is an Epic Store exclusive, and I kind of have to look at the trailer now. E3 alone has put me in a position where I cannot remember what game is what. Yeah, Outer Worlds is like a space Fallout style game that has failed to impress so far. It might be impressive eventually, but I think it's gonna need some work. Let's see. 4 and that. Take that.
Low.
Kill that. Twitch also had some trouble. They retweeted themselves from May 29th saying, "We have been working around the clock to resolve this issue and are pleased to share that new creators can stream stream again on Twitch." June 7th they tweeted out, "The site is returning to normal as we can't continue to recover from the issue." Not sure what the issue really is. Apparently it was the two-factor authentication via apps issue from June 6th, which they implemented haphazardly, to say the least. Let's see. We have a mobile game here from Gamatsu. Sky Children of Light launches July 11th for iOS, later for Android, consoles, and PC. Really not the time to be announcing your mobile game in the middle of E3. This looks slightly interesting, however, so many games where a character flies turns out to be pretty bad. I don't know why that tends to be the case, but it seems to be the case. And if this is just a mobile Unity style game, it might be pretty short considering it's targeting cell phones. Like, really bad timing. It's part of the E3 and trailer announcement. But if we're going to talk about weird things being announced at E3, the Ubisoft conference, they announced and talked about a TV series. A TV series from the actor from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he plays the guy in charge of a fictional video game company that made a fictional version of World of Warcraft that was super successful. Like, it really made no sense that Ubisoft would give them time to talk about their TV show when it seemed like Ubisoft had no connection to it really at all. Speaking of weird things, we have a game here called El Hincha El Video Jungle. I assume that's the video game. This is early access. English is not supported. It's free. This looks like an infinite runner with just some asset flip game elements in it. Doesn't look particularly good. Almost certainly today's stream is just going to end kind of abruptly too. I just don't think we're going to get all of the daily quests done and have all of the news done. I think what we'll run into as we're moving to the Asian account is I will do the daily quest, and once I'm done with the daily quest, I think that will just be the end of the stream. So we'll see, unless I just start running into a lot of duplicate tabs, which might be the case.
Find a seat if you can.
EA Play here, Apex Legends 10th Legend Watson has been announced. I don't know how many people are still playing Apex Legends. I'm not even sure I know what Apex Legends is actually. Wasn't Apex Legends a Fortnite clone? Shaman and Warlock. I don't know if I want to play Shaman and Warlock, so let's re-roll that. Paladin and Warrior. Alright. I can play Paladin. We have the release date of November 15th, 2019 for Star Wars Fallen Order.
You asked for it.
I will.
We've already
fight
talked
with
about
honor.
Star Wars Fallen Order, but that's actual information. Microsoft's xCloud console streaming service goes live in October. Maybe that is in a beta state, though. Let's see, I guess probably don't need any of this to start with. Dying Light 2 launches in spring of 2020. So I guess if I'm gonna buy Dying Light 1 and cover it, I need to be pretty quick on that. And that probably means I won't get around to it. I will say Borderlands has managed not to put out a bunch of shift codes while they're also announcing their Borderlands 3 game. So they are putting out shift codes, but not a lot. The last one seems to have been June 7th. I imagine they put out another one, but in a week or so.
For justice.
I guess that they don't want to flood people with information. Be nice, at least if people realize, hey, everybody's busy at E3. Elden Ring is coming for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. I think I already said that. Let's see if there's any more details on Project Scarlet. No. What happened here is I opened my plugin still has crashed. It's been like 2 weeks and I haven't gotten around to being able to reset my browser, my Chrome browser, because of the follow list cleanup, and so the duplicate tab plugin has crashed. So I'm opening a lot of tabs that are just the same when I scroll down and look for new information, because of the way Twitter works. If Twitter was a little bit better, it would and a little bit more consistently chronological in how you look at get shown information, I wouldn't have as much of a problem. Alright.
Close the gates.
TechRaptor has an article here, Bethesda E3 2019 conference recap. These are probably the only articles that you need to read, because this is trying to recap the entire conference in a few paragraphs. Let's see if there's anything we haven't really talked about. Yeah, there was a new Rage 2 expansion, I believe, that they're trying to make people more interested in Rage 2 still. But looking at all of this, there was some Doom Eternal stuff, and you can register at Slayer's Club. I believe they also have a Commander Keen mobile phone game where it's going to be the children of the original Commander Keen playing on a mobile game. This probably isn't going to end up being great quality products by any means, but it's an interesting idea for them to try to do anything with Commander Keen. According to what I heard, Commander Keen was made in response to Nintendo telling idsoft back in the day that they couldn't port, that they didn't want to work with them to port Super Mario Brothers to PC. So instead they made Commander Keen, and if you compare Commander Keen to Super Mario Bros. 1, Commander Keen is way less responsive and way less polished. It's a fine game to have a little bit of nostalgia for, like I do, but if you actually try to play it, it's a waste of time. They had Wolfenstein Cyber Pilot VR and the Wolfenstein Young Bloods game trailer again. There's a game called Deathloop that I haven't seen anything about. Doom Eternal seems to have improved some of what the Doom reboot was missing. Here's the picture they used for Commander Keen. The developers of The Evil Within have moved on to a game called Ghostwire Tokyo, which probably is a smart move. Like, The Evil Within, it's 2 games. A good first step, but not a real replacement for Resident Evil games, which is kind of what it was trying to be. There we go. Bethesda's showing wasn't terrible, frankly. It just wasn't amazing or great, and it's not certain. Like, what they didn't show was any teaser for anything from the Elder Scrolls series, or any teaser from anything from the Starlink series, or the Fallout series besides Fallout 76. So this very much was a Bethesda showcase showing off a bunch of id products and other subsidiaries of Bethesda instead of actual Bethesda games in development, which might be a good thing. Let's see. Here's the trailer of that game, Deathloop. Let's see what this is. Well, it seems like I'm seeing a weirdo trailer with a clock, so it probably has something to do with time. This might be the trailer where there's 2 characters and they're like locked in a time loop and they're trying to kill each other left and right. And every time they die, they just they go back in time and have to do it again. That's an interesting Twilight Zone type story. It's not really a video game type story unless you can put some gameplay mechanics around it and some story mechanics around it. Let's see.
I live.
I'm doomed.
Reporting for duty.
Show me.
Move quickly.
let's see. Yeah, they really didn't show anything new from what I could tell from the Wolfenstein Youngblood presentation. Seems like it's just a new trailer. They mentioned that the two daughters of BJ Blazkowicz are trying to save BJ Blazkowicz, and they're set in a future time period. Inherently, I think their desire to make a co-op capable game has shifted the main focus away from BJ Blazkowicz as main character, which they probably had a desire to get away from BJ Blazkowicz being the main character of Wolfenstein, and at that point it's not really a Wolfenstein game now, is it? So they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, and I don't know if they're gonna be able to pull off that miracle. What they should have done is in Wolfenstein 1 or Wolfenstein 2, which isn't the real name of Wolfenstein 2 in the reboots, is they should have had him nobly sacrifice himself, and then that would have opened up a case that there were several other resistance fighters that you picked from or played as in the next game, or there was one person in particular that replaces him. But I don't think that happened. So now they're going with kind of the chronological concept, the biological concept of having daughters replace him. And frankly, they could have played it safer and had a daughter and a son play them. That way you could pick your gender, in case that's still something people care about, which I think it might still be a little something that some people care about. Moving on, though, we really don't have time to speculate. Devolver Digital had their announcements. I definitely didn't waste any time watching Devolver Digital's presentation. A reverse horror game called Carry On was revealed. I don't know what they mean by revealed. This game has already been on Steam as a early access thing, or at least a game that looks exactly like this has already been on Steam. So you play as this big ball of flesh, and you kill things, and fling yourself with tentacles of flesh. Yeah. I have no idea why they're saying that's revealed, though. Unless I just dreamt up this game and haven't seen it before, which I doubt is the case. It's been out like for months. They also announced this game Devolver Bootleg, which is $4.49, which is a bunch of like retro looking 8-bit games that are supposed to be bootlegs of other games Devolver Digital has published, I think, or it's just bootlegs of other games in general. There's really not anything here that interests me per se. 8 games in one for $4.94. Yeah, bootlegs of Enter the Dungeon and Hotline Miami, Ape Escape. Yeah, I might put this game on the follow list as a joke game. That's pretty much all it is, but frankly it should be free, not $5 for it. And oddly, that probably will be the only game that makes it to the follow list today, because we're covering so much news. Doom Eternal launches November 22nd. It is an official sequel to Doom. I confuse it every time with Diablo Immortal. They really frankly should have made a trailer going, this is not Diablo Immortal. They are still pushing multiplayer though, and I think that's a mistake. I just don't think you're gonna get a big enough audience for multiplayer on the Doom systems. A House of the Gun Dead arcade cabinet was announced at Devolver Digital. Let's see. This is probably something that you would have to order from their site and pay a really high price. And it looks like a real arcade game with real guns, and then it's an Enter the Gungeon custom game. If this actually ends up in arcades, I'd be extremely surprised. Well, it says it's coming exclusively to arcades, but that might be a joke too, so I wouldn't be surprised if the arcade game actually doesn't end up in more than 2 arcades. That would be a legal requirement, is if you say arcades, is multiple more than one. And I could see them making a couple prototypes and putting them in California arcades, and that's it. This is
For justice.
and that. Devolver Digital also announced a game called Fall Guys, which looks like a Japanese style game where it's a race and people follow over each other and try to get to the end. Yeah, it really felt like to me they were stealing the idea of those Japanese game shows that that used to be popular. I don't even know if they're that popular. Frankly, it really doesn't look like much of a game. It's not super surprising that I'm not majorly impressed by Devolver Digital. They at best are 50-50 as far as the interesting games they publish. So their presentation is also consistently a waste of time. Gamatsu has an article, The Messenger free DLC Picnic Panic launches July 11th. So The Messenger is getting some free DLC. Alright.
Free of that blasted
I believe that's a Devolver Digital game also. Maybe the announcement for Carrion was that it's coming to consoles. That might have been the case. It may have just been a PC exclusive. There's a new mode in Doom Eternal called Battle Mode. 2 players take control of a demon and go head to head against another player who takes control of a fully loaded Slayer. So it seems like it's just player versus 2 versus 1. Seems pretty generic and basic as an idea.
Got something to hide?
coming. For justice.
Bethesda did announce this middleware software called Orion, which just makes me think of the old direct-to-TV, direct-to-VHS publisher Orion company. But anyways, Bethesda's Orion is supposed to be a middleware software that at the engine level will make adjustments to how the game is playing and interacting with servers far away to improve streaming and lower latency, increase frames per second, and reduce bandwidth. It may be it's probably a little bit more than just a compression engine, but it may not be much more than that. And middleware inherently might be useful, might not, depending on how you implement it.
Wow.
I don't know if I really would want to do middleware software from Bethesda, since how much Bethesda likes to sue people. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a whole collection of people that used Orion today in their software and got sued 5-10 years from now for using Orion in their software. So I really wouldn't want to do business with Bethesda if I was making video games. Arguably, you probably should. There's an argument to be made, at least, that you shouldn't do business with Bethesda as a games consumer, just because of how litigious they've been. Gematsu has an article here. Rage 2 expansion Rise of the Ghost announced. I just took Rage 2 off the follow list, actually. So I definitely don't need to do anything with that expansion. I suppose there is a possibility that that Rage 2 will fix itself and actually end up being a good game. That's always a possibility, but that doesn't mean I need to hold my breath and have the game on the follow list. Next, Gematsu has Commander Keen Revival announced for smartphones. I don't know why you make a smartphone. I like the idea of going with a very cartoony art style and going with the kids so you can have a girl and boy character, compared to like Wolfenstein, where it's just two girl characters who are immediately introduced in the game as being adults, so you don't even have any time to really get to know them. There really should have been a middle game between the last Wolfenstein and Youngbloods, just so you could have seen them as like angsty teenagers or something. So here's the father, Commander Keen, and the faceless mother, and the two kids are taking on their own personas as Commander Keen-esque characters. This is incredibly cartoony, and that's not a bad thing. What is the real game, though? We have no idea. Like, and if it's a mobile game, I hope it's a good mobile game. I hope this isn't just a click and wait thing. There's some gameplay trailer. Yeah, it kind of looks like it's just jumping and platforming. Oh man, that does not look good. I don't see how. Kind of looks like a Worms World Party if you're just squeezing it down to a mobile phone resolution.
Move quickly.
I don't know if this reboot of the characters is going to potentially give them an idea to make a better Commander Keen game. Really, it feels like id Software is just kind of using this because they don't want to lose the copyright for Commander Keen more than anything else. And yeah, I don't know what you really do with the Commander Keen series. It's a platformer game, so you probably, if you're going to put money into it, is you make a Super Mario 64 style 3D platforming game. That's probably the best thing you could do. Here's the trailer for Ghostwire Tokyo, which seems to be
Team spirit
mostly full motion video. Yeah. Seems like very little is being shown here about the game. Just a little tease. Some masked character who has a bow and arrow and magic abilities.
Reporting for duty.
Thank you.
The battle.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Hey, catch!
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and squelch this character. Yeah, I don't even see the end of the tunnel as far as news. State of Decay 2 Heartland expansion is now available. I don't even remember what State of Decay is, though. This is the problem. I believe State of Decay 2's Heartland trailer 2 is surprisingly similar to the time loop trailer of the game where two people are trying to kill each other over and over again. It seems to me like either one of those companies or the other got word of what that trailer was going to look like, and they decided just to copy each other, which just makes it feel very awkward. I have no idea. I don't have a clue whether State of Decay 2 is a good game or a bad game. So I'll just say the expansion is now available. It's probably not that good of a game, though, if you're gonna release a expansion right in the middle of E3. Ages of Empires 2 Definitive Editions launches in the fall. A lot of nebulous dates being shown here. Here's the trailer for 12 minutes, a game where you spend it all in a room, and that's pretty much all you see is this room. Maybe you can get in the other rooms, but you can't leave, and I don't think you can leave the apartment until you've probably won the game.
Reporting for duty.
There was this weird game that they showed that it's being described as a cozy management game about dying called Spiritfarer for the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch and PC. And it's very cartoony, and it looks like you're just acting as the farrier over the River Styx or something like that. Seems like you're building a boat, and maybe it's more centered around one character dying instead of a bunch of characters dying. Really no clue about what this game is. It says it's about learning how to say goodbye, but I really don't trust video game developers to tell a well thought out and helpful story in that case. What are we trying to do right now, by the way? Paladin or warrior victories, we've not been able to successfully get one so far. So let's come over to this and try warrior. Gears 5 launches September 10th. I know we're definitely all over the place with all of this. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot launches early 2020. We're kind of going in circles at this point. Wasteland 3 launches spring 2020. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has trailers and screenshots on Gamatsu. What I noticed here is the technology definitely does not feel like it fits into what you saw in episode 6 or episode 7. It does seem like they've been able to take quite a license on the technology and take it in a different direction. I guess it probably doesn't matter that much, but it is, I suppose, a big universe, or supposed to be a big universe in the Star Wars world, so maybe there's different technologies in different sections. Gamatsu has an article here. Minecraft Dungeons launches spring 2020, a new way to experience Minecraft. It's just a Minecraft skin over a Diablo-esque dungeon crawler game, as far as I can tell. It's probably not a bad idea for Mojang and Microsoft to go this route, though. Having a dungeon crawler and doing more with the Minecraft name makes some sense, particularly since you're losing the Minecraft story mode games. If anything, I'd say Minecraft Dungeons is the opposite of story mode. Instead of adding more story to Minecraft, it's taking away story and character from Minecraft to make a generic hack and slash. Final Fantasy VII Remake launches March 3rd, 2020. Being that this is from Square Enix, however, I would not hold my breath on that date because almost certainly it's going to get pushed back. It will launch worldwide for the PS4 and nothing else, which is also not really surprising. So yeah, again, I wouldn't hold my breath on this, but they put a date out, so that's something at least. I believe there was a bit of a tease for Beyond Good and Evil 2. I don't even think I have any articles about it. But yeah, more of an indication that I suspect that game is not really being worked on in any realistic amount of effort. Komatsu has an article here. Lovely Planet 2 April Skies has been announced for PCs due out June 18th. I tried to play Lovely Planet 1, didn't like it. It didn't control the way I like. In a way I could enjoy, so I would be skipping Lovely Planet 2, but if somebody did like it, that's an option. So many duplicate tabs. We have a game on Steam here called Coder Bear, which looks to me not like a programming or coding game, so I don't get the exact name. It says it has educational programming aspects, otherwise it just looks like a simplistic platforming game. Where is this programming aspects here? You purchase the keyboard and then you have to start typing in code here. Well, this feels like this would probably break any form of entertainment pretty fast playing this. $6.29. I'm gonna put this on the fall list though, because that looks a little interesting, but it also, I suspect, it is really just shenanigans more than an actual education program that you'd actually want your kids to play.
I will hunt you down. To my side.
Let's see what else. TechRaptor has the Bethesda E3 conference recap. I think we already looked at this one though, so I'm just looking at the exact same page again. Yeah. And I am so going in circles. And I may have to just play off screen to get victories. TechRaptor has an article. Japanese indie publisher Fly High Works announcing next presentation. This is a different looking game. Fly High is set to talk about 5 games. One called Picantier, Trans the Ruby, Shovel Knight, Treasure Trove, Obake Ne Fune to Takaramono, the Ghost Ship and the Treasure, and Itawari no Kuro Shinju 2. So this is like a Japanese developer. And I don't recognize any of these games. This is DS and Steam Greenlight and PS4. Picantier. For to jump through this looks like kind of like a Stardew Valley style clone. Let's see. This looks like a platforming game. Simplistic animation platforming game. Nothing's particularly special about that. This looks like a Switch only game. It seems to just be some platforming for all that's being shown. Very little being shown there. These are some Japanese games. Like they seem very small and very centric. This one seems to be around riding trains. Maybe it's just a visual novel around riding trains on the Switch. What a combination of games there. And I've never heard of Fly High Works, but I would say at this point that they probably are not a publisher worth mentioning. Here we have a game on Steam called Hero is Coming, which looks like a low effort asset flip game. It's a like 2D platformer with, you can barely even see this character standing out from the background. It looks like a zombie game, zombie RPG. $8.99, English only. There's nothing here visually attractive at all.
I'll never tell.
Job's done. Reporting for duty.
Gamasutra does have an E3 2019 event coverage page, which then just kind of links you to all the other pages that Gamasutra types. That being said, TechRaptor has been way better at actually putting out information of importance. So I wouldn't go to Gamasutra because Gamasutra is not doing a great job of actually reporting on everything. They're being kind of off and on about it. I would go to Gamasutra, TechRaptor, or Kimetsu by far. Kimetsu's doing a pretty decent job of covering everything, but TechRaptor is catching a few more things. And yeah, I probably need to find a new source or two, so everything isn't just coming out of 3 different websites, but
I fight.
that might just be the way things go.
Job's done.
We have a game here on Steam called Double Dragon, which I think is the real Double Dragon game, but I'm not sure. This might not be from the same publisher and developer of the other Double Dragon games, which I would have thought would have been either Capcom or Bandai. Or there might just be a case here where Double Dragon was the name of a game in Japan, and then Capcom or Bandai published a game called Double Dragon in America. But this is a Chinese language only game. So what I suspect this is this probably a clone of the original Double Dragon then, because it's Chinese. My whole opinion really went 180 as soon as I saw that it was Chinese only. Yeah. Yeah. I guess if I was to type in Double Dragon, let's see, Double Dragon Neon, Double Dragon 4, Double Dragon Trilogy here from DME.emu.
Move quickly.
Yeah, this was the original Double Dragon games, I think.
The battle.
I fight.
Play quickly
The
here.
battle. Reporting for duty.
So yeah, that Double Dragon's not making it to the fall list. Because clearly that's just a name confusion attempt. Next we have a game on Steam called Discontinue, which looks like a low effort vector based game of some sort. Doesn't look like there's much here. Some kind of VR, they're calling it a VR disc throwing game where you're throwing discs at each other or at other people. $7.99. This is not visually appealing. Somebody really needs to consider when making a VR game, hey, if your VR game doesn't look good enough to deserve having a camera right in front of the face of the player, you've made a mistake. Awful looking graphics and VR should not mix.
I fight.
Alright, so we need to get rid of something. So we can play that. And then
Move quickly.
here,
The battle.
here.
Reporting for duty.
My turn. Next we have a game on Steam called The Last Cowboy. Let's see, this is Dark Screenshot Syndrome. Looks like an asset flip first person shooter game. Right now, coming out right when E3 is happening, this is not the kind of game that should be given a chance. Or at least that's my feeling right now. It's like I'm not in a particularly good mood to be generous to games while we're burning through E3 presentations that are showing way better looking games. And even though there's a decent chance that half of the games that are being shown at E3 are gonna turn out to be flops. This game, The Last Cowboy, is $2.39 discounted English and Russian. And I think the English and Russian part about it is the nail in the coffin. I was maybe feeling a little
I will fight
generous
with
there.
honor.
Trying to be fair, but no, I don't think so. TechRaptor has an article, Ubisoft E3, so we're starting to hit the Ubisoft conference stuff. Adventure Time is coming to Brawlhalla in a crossover, so you can play as the Adventure Time characters in Brawlhalla, which I'm not sure if Brawlhalla is out of early access or has enough of a fan base to justify considering playing it at this point. Let's see. I guess it was at this conference that the Battletoads gameplay was shown. No, this is not the gameplay video. This is the text video. There must be like a small amount of gameplay in that trailer. Or maybe just nobody has the video of the gameplay.
Quickly.
Protects me.
Job done.
TechRaptor has an article, new Xbox Game Pass games with id at Xbox. There's a long list here of games that were announced for the Xbox Game Pass. Dead Static Drive, Star Renegades, After Party, Way of the Woods, Creature of the Wild, Killer Queen Black, Undermine, Pathologic 2, Lord of the Rings, The Living Card Game. That one was slightly interesting. The Good Life, Blazing Chrome, Totally Accurate Bells Simulator, Secret Neighbor, Supermarket Shriek, Blair Witch. They announced a Blair Witch game. I haven't even mentioned that yet.
Move quickly.
I fight.
a game called Night Call, a game called Riverbond, Felix the Reaper, a romantic comedy, a game about life and death, Iconfell, Batman Arkham Knight, Metro Exodus, that's a big one, Hollow Knight, and Borderlands The Handsome Collection, that's the biggest one. Most of these games coming to Xbox Games Pass, not big at all. Lord of the Rings Living card game though is a bit of a surprise, but everything
Got
else
something to hide?
kind of makes sense. Microsoft throws some money at some of these small, medium tier games and they come to Games Pass. And most of those games I think are out of their 6 months initial sales window. Probably one of the weirdest trailers visually was this announcement for this pen and paper game called The Legend of Wright, WRIGHT, which seems like it is kind of an RPG with just a pen and pencil aesthetic to how things are animated, which means it's probably pretty heavy cutscene wise. And I don't know if any actual gameplay mechanics that are being that will be used, if anything, will kind of consistently happen, like this treasure being drawn or not. It seems like this could be a really short game, but it is very visually interesting. That might not mean anything, however. That like this couldn't be 2 hours of a mostly visual presentation. Alright.
Close the gates!
Show me!
I fight.
Job's done.
Let's see. Tech Raptor has this article. It's Always Sunny in Mythic Quest, Raven's Banquet coming to Apple TV Plus. So this is a Apple TV specific TV series from the actors of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It seems weird that Ubisoft has any interest in this at all, or why they would let their presentation be confused like that. It's not like these presentations have to go long at all. You could have spent less time doing nothing, quite frankly. Maybe that's in part of the problem of last year's Sony conference too, where they did entire concerts and elements in their presentation that the guy playing the Japanese flute, for instance, had nothing really to do with any of the gameplay. So maybe E3 does require your presentation to take a certain amount of time, but that seems ridiculous that the E3 Convention Center and organization would require you to have longer presentations. Moving on, Watch Dogs Legion gameplay details new characters and locations. This is Tech Raptor. They're making a claim that you can recruit every single character in the game in this post-Brexit London world, that anybody can be recruited to the DedSec group and you can play as those characters. I assume what this means is that the trailer that is shown that has 3 major characters that are doing interesting actions and having lines of dialogue are 3 characters you run into at the very beginning of the game, and then you can recruit anyone else you want and play as that character, but you don't hear them talk very much and they don't say anything that special. This granny with a gun being a member of DedSec, for instance. And it really feels like they're making a lie here, saying that you can play as any character, and then they're showing characters that are actually speaking and having personalities and backstories. They're also saying that each character you recruit has an origin story, which that seems unrealistic unless there's a considerably small amount of characters in the world in general. I think when people start really playing Watch Dogs Legions, they will, which is Watch Dogs 3, I think they'll quickly find that the origin stories are very generic and repetitive, and the hope, I think, might be that they're hoping people only recruit 2 or 3, maybe a dozen people to play as. They learn to love the character they recruited, and then they stop trying to recruit more people. That's the only thing I can really guess. If that's not the case, then Ubisoft wasted a ridiculous amount of time paying for voice actors and writing origin stories, and that seems like the game itself then probably doesn't have a consistent... If that really is the case, then the game itself won't have much of a story mode gameplay element, and you'll find that it's not actually that interesting of a game. So yeah, the best case scenario, as far as I can see it, is we'll just play Mage once here. Is that I hope they're lying, because if they're not lying, they've really changed, wasted their production money. TechRaptor has an article here. Cyberpunk 2077 release date announced. There was a trailer of Cyberpunk 2077. The actor who plays John Wick shows up in a cinematic like flash cameo, and so I guess he's in the game now. This is, I think, something CD Projekt Red arranged more than Microsoft, and then the actor who plays John Wick, who I can't remember the name of the actor right now, comes out on stage, and people are like super surprised and super hyped because of that. In the end, I doubt he's going to be much more than a secondary character. And I don't know if that really guarantees CD Projekt Red is going to be any better or any worse. If anything, it might be an indication that it's going to be worse, because they spent money paying for his likeness and his voice acting, and in almost in every instance I've ever seen of a regular actor taking a job away from a video game voice actor, they've done a worse job on it.
Hello.
So, like, nothing against the actor who plays John Wick, but it's probably not a helpful thing to do. Watch Dogs Legion launches March 6, 2020 for the PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Stadia. There might be a case where you recruit people and then you immediately put a helmet on them and they never speak again. That might be the case. But in the end, being able to recruit every character is just highlighting that you've created a fancy custom character creator or random character creator. It's not really a big selling point for what that game should be. Like, the game Watch Dogs is kind of like a GTA or Assassin's Creed game. It needs to have lots of missions, lots of gameplay, lots of story. Speaking of story, Gematsu has an article. The Assassin's Creed Odyssey Story Creator Mode quest creation tool is now available in open beta. So if you want to make your own stories, apparently that's somewhat doable. I bet it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, though, as a module, but it might open the door to some amazing content being made in the long run. Let's see. Please. Game of Sutra has an article here. Shenmue 3 is an Epic Store exclusive on PC. And it seems like the people who kickstarted it are not happy with that at all. So that might also be a good excuse for me not to ever play any of the Shenmue games. But I right now can easily just take a wait and see approach. Limited run physical editions, the company limited run that makes limited run physical editions, announced a lot of games such as Star Wars Bounty Hunter, PS4 exclusive. In fact, they skipped over quite a few of these games because I was just trying to cover the ones that were interesting. A limited run for Real Mist Masterpiece Edition is coming to the Switch. Real Mist coming to the Switch is interesting. Double Switch is coming out for the Switch too as a limited run with a reversible cover. A game I haven't heard of called Corpse Killer 25th Anniversary Edition is coming out for the PS4 and PC. A limited run. Let's see. There we go. I have no idea what this game Corpse Killer is, so I wanted to see the trailer here. It looks like it's a full motion video I've just never heard of. Because here's the trailer. It's just like, this must have been a Sega CD game. Probably was pretty bad. But yeah, I've never heard of this at all. Let's see. Well, I'm gonna do some more research on that one. TechRaptor has this recap here for a presentation I didn't even know was happening called Upload VR. So there was a bunch of VR games announced. I'm not sure if any of them are super interesting. Like Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades are getting TF2 costumes. Angry Birds 2, the movie, VR Under Pressure, is coming to PlayStation VR. Doctor Who Edge of Time got a bit of a show off. The Walking Dead Onslaught for some VR. I'm not even gonna try to break this down. Arizona Sunshine is coming out for the Oculus Quest. A game called Echo Quest and Echo and Arena for the Oculus Quest. We may see a decent amount of Oculus Quest releases. A game called Rogan the Thief in the Castle. This female knight looks like a female gagged woman, frankly. Or Asgard's Wrath, maybe that's what the screenshot is. I'm not even sure. Arizona Sunshine, The Damned. Let's just play spells. Budget Cuts 2 is also announced. Esper 1 was also announced. There's just a lot of VR games on a lot of different VR consoles or devices. I guess this is the first year in which they either, you could either say they segregated and isolated and quarantined all VR games to its own show, or they felt VR was actually becoming successful, and because of that, they deserve their own show. So, depending on how you want to look at it, either one of those could be the case. Turok and Turok 2 Seeds of Evil are getting a Switch limited run physical edition. Rogue Legacy 4, Rogue Legacy for the PS4 and Switch are getting physical editions. Rogue Legacy, pretty old game. A game called Bad North is getting a Switch physical edition. I'm not exactly sure what this is. So I want to do some more research on that. I don't think I'm actually going to go into the single player. I'm going to just try and cover as much news quickly here, and then we're going to end the stream. There'll be a lot of news Wednesday too. Hover Revolt for the PS4 is getting a physical edition. I don't know exactly what that is either, but I guess if it's a PS... Well, I guess I still have to do research to see if maybe it's on the PC too. Papers, Please is getting a PS Vita physical edition, which is really surprising. TechRaptor has an article here. Baldur's Gate 3 prequel and Baldur's Gate 3 info announced. So, on top of them announcing Baldur's Gate 3, they're going to make a prequel to Baldur's Gate 3, which wouldn't that just have been Baldur's Gate 2? That seems kind of crazy. Night in the Woods is getting PS4 and Switch limited run. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a bunch of games that get only limited runs as less and less things are sold physically. Gamatsu has an article. El Hijo has a trailer, a non-violent spaghetti western stealth game due out in 2019. I think we kind of had seen this trailer before, though. I swear I'd seen this. Feels like some of these trailers are getting put out as if they're something new when they really aren't. Maybe I'm just more inside baseball than I think, and I've got the in hookups on some of these trailers. PC Gamers show Genesis Noir announcement trailer. This game looks maybe slightly interesting, but it really could be nothing. Yeah. And this is just an announcement trailer, so I guess I don't really care about it too much. Another game at the PC Gaming show called Telling Lies reveals its truths. Or no, the game is just called Telling Lies. I can see the end of the road. Return to Terraria with the Journey's End expansion update. With a name like that, I assume that is the final Terraria update. I think I own Terraria. I don't know if I ever actually get around to playing it though. As a 2D Minecraft clone is basically what I can call it. TechRaptor has an article here. Borderlands 3 details laid out in a rapid-fire Q&A session. So, if you're really interested in that, Day 9 was apparently asking some questions. I doubt he asked any real hard-hitting or important questions, though. That article, though, if you want to read it. Let's see. We have an article here. Chris Tales JRPG Love Letter announced by Modius Games. So the name of the game is called Chris Tales? Christ Tales? C-R-I-S? I don't know how you pronounce that. Probably Christ. They're saying it's a love letter to JRPG games, which I don't know what that really means other than what's the difference between a love letter to a JRPG game and a clone of a JRPG game. or just a JRPG style RPG that is made by a Western person. This looks very polished for what they're showing, but it does become kind of questionable. Like, at a certain point, it would get insulting for people to play Chris Tales and not have played some of the most well-known JRPGs out there, because that seems like that's then playing favorites on people closer to your own region. I want to do some more research on that game. TechRaptor has an article. Auto Chess exclusive is coming to Epic Games Store. I don't know if this is all of Auto Chess. This is Dragon Nest's own take on the standalone Auto Chess is coming to the Epic Games Store. I think Valve, though, is making its own Auto Chess spin-off version for Dota, and since Auto Chess was a mod of Dota in the first place, this might be the first example of Valve actually kind of fighting with Epic, while Epic is trying to bring Steam down to its knees in a very ridiculous attempt. Next, we have an article. Patrice Dissolets talks about Ancestors to the Humankind Odyssey. I really have no room in my head to remember people's names right now. Apparently, Ancestors is a game. It's probably a life sim game. It probably is not going to be very polished. But maybe there's something here. Maybe it'll be a shorter experience. Seems like you're playing as a ape that I guess maybe will eventually evolve into a human. Maybe the entirety of the game you just play as the ape, and that'd probably be a smarter move instead of trying to have 5 different evolutions of the same game. We have an article here. Per Aspero will send your brains to Mars. Which... what is this? None of these PC Gamer Show games have like announced dates as far as release dates or anything like that, so it's hardly the same thing as looking at games that came out on Steam when I'm looking at these reviews. Yeah, this feels like a Mars Colony Simulator game. Okay. Yeah, that seems fine. But I'm seeing no release dates. These games are probably going to come out in a year, maybe 2. Chris Tales is announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. So it already has a Steam page. But I'm not sure if I want to put a game on the follow list that doesn't have a release date. So yeah, that's a weird choice too, because I'm kicking games off of the follow list for not having release dates. Here's some real news. This is your regular expected news. Twin Mirror delayed the 2020 PC version, timed exclusive to the Epic Games Store. I have no idea what Twin Mirror is though. It's publisher Bandai Namco and Don't Nod Entertainment. So this is the Life is Strange group, I think, is Don't Nod. I could be wrong about that. It's no longer due out for 2019. There's a real announcement. We are not making our release date. TechRaptor has an article, Manage Your Own Zoo in Planet Zoo, a zoo simulator. Interesting idea. We've seen several of these though. We'll have to wait and see. And that's the truth with so many of these games, is it's like you get hyped about them, you're gonna forget about them, and by the 2 years it takes for them to even come close to coming out, a lot of these games may not come out in 4 or 6 years. There's games definitely that were announced 2 years ago at E3 that still aren't out. Griftlands has colorful card game action from Clay Entertainment. That's an interesting idea, but I don't think Clay Entertainment is big enough to make a card game that would replace something like Hearthstone. This is more like Slay the Spire, like a deck building game. And it looks fine, yeah. As I'm skipping through this trailer, but yeah, it's not something that's gonna replace Hearthstone. Gamatsu has an article, Zombie Army 4 Dead War announced for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. I have never heard of the Zombie Army series, so it's probably not that interesting. Although this trailer looks like it is more visually appealing than what I would expect from a zombie game. Just looking at this, even. I don't think you really change too much if you turn the Nazis from World War II into zombies. I mean, they're pretty much the same thing anyways, as nameless, faceless enemies. We have a game on Steam here called Mushroom Cats, which I think I might give a follow on Steam. It's free to play. I guess in that case I'll just leave it alone. 24 achievements, free to play. Looks like it might be worth a free to play. Probably isn't super long, whatever this game is. This might really just be a demo. It clearly is being used to sell this other game, Call of Fries. So I'm going to do a little bit more research on that. Yeah, here's the other game, Call of Fries. It came out at the same time, which is a match 3 game, it seems. And I'm out of RAM, so none of these images want to load up. This is $2.39, and now that I've seen Call of Fries, I'm now not interested in either one of these games. So close that and then come back and close that. Next game we have on Steam is called The Homestead, which looks like a VR game with full motion video. This looks visually attractive. I don't know what it is though, whether it's a puzzle or horror game, or if it's just walking around a nicely designed house, basically like one of the museum simulator games. I'll put this on the follow list and look at it some more. I'm trying to rush through things. Let's see. Komatsu has an article, Mosaic E3 2019 trailer. Don't have a clue what Mosaic is. See, this is a problem. Again, so much is being shown to you at E3. It's just all turning into a bowl of mush. Like, I like pizza, I like macaroni and cheese, I like hamburgers, I like lots of foods. I don't want to eat a meal, however, where it is a bunch of pizza, a bunch of hamburgers, a bunch of macaroni and cheese, all mixed together. That's too much food and too much variety. And that's kind of E3 in comparison. Gamatsu has an article, Conan Chop Chop announced for the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch and PC. 4-player action-adventure game due out September 3rd. Now, I don't know if this is Conan as in Conan the Destroyer, the comic book character. I think maybe it is a reference or a sly reference to that, but I don't know if this is a actual licensed product, considering there's another Conan game out right now, and this definitely looks more cartoony and like a hack and slash game. This game might very well get sued for copyright infringement. Otherwise, it doesn't look that interesting because it's a 4-player game that probably doesn't have a single-player experience. Next article, we have Unexplored 2, The Wayfarer's Legacy, announced for consoles and PC, due out in 2020. Let's see if there's a trailer here that gives us a general idea. Seems like it's a top-down exploration game. Not seeing a lot here of interest. That doesn't look particularly good. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Torn Banner reveals its first footage of Chivalry 2, which then Mordhau feels a little weird because I think some of the developers of Chivalry 1 went over to move to make Mordhau, and I guess whoever was left is now making Chivalry 2. And so maybe there will be a good game when this gets released, maybe not. It's kind of a big question mark. I guess that's the truth for any game. Komatsu has the same article, so we don't need to talk about that. TechRaptor has an article. Starmancer is a colony management sim. This looks a lot like Stardew Valley. Doesn't really interest me. I don't think I want to play any management sims anyways. Here's a big surprise from TechRaptor. Evil Genius 2 World Domination reveal. Evil Genius 2 getting a sequel was a big surprise when it was announced. So I definitely do want to see this trailer. There's a lot of polish that needed to be done to Evil Genius 1, quite frankly, so I don't know if perhaps Evil Genius 2 is the concept of them going back to a new engine and making it work a lot better. I wouldn't be surprised if there's very little added to the gameplay mechanics or to as far as elements. Evil Genius is a dungeon keeper-esque game without the evil aspect as far as the demonic aspect. I guess you're still an evil genius and you're capturing spies, or you're capturing, more often than not, just random people who are vacationing on the island, and then you're like brainwashing them and turning them into minions that work for you. See, this game is really not showing you a lot of any gameplay. Sign up for a chance to win closed beta access. That's shifty. It's supposed to be released on Steam in 2020. Evil Genius 1, I think, came out in the 2010s, so it's probably been about 10 years. But I am interested in definitely seeing that happen and seeing how well that succeeds. Komatsu has Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines debut gameplay trailer, which I'm a little bit afraid to watch for YouTube family friendliness sakes. Apparently they put an ESRB rating on their entire presentations, but then I guess you would just say the entire presentation is immature. There's a lot of promise and a lot of hope with Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. I'm still not 100% sure that there is a full game in it, so there's still some issues, I think, that need to be resolved, and some concerns that need to be resolved as far as how much of a game actually is there and how much of it is just selling on the name. Here we have a absolute garbage Arachnoid clone game for $5.24 on Steam, so we can immediately ignore that. We'll ignore all the other games. There's a web page that is, the server is down. Apparently that's not going to load. We already talked about Arizona Sunshine and the Damn DLC being announced as an expansion on that VR zombie shooter. A game called Lone Echo for VR was also announced. I think we may have already talked about that too. The Dr. Who Edge of Time VR game we already talked about too. Yeah, this game is called Rogan the Thief in the Castle. There's, I guess, maybe a trailer here. I didn't see any of this because I didn't watch this presentation. Although the question really comes down to, do you need to watch anything at E3? Do you even really need to look at the recaps? I do, because I want to be informed as a video game critic and somewhat of a video game journalist. Not really, but not sure if everybody needs to. So if the other lady was the knight, then this other woman probably is gagged. Moving on, Bandai Namco announces its E3 2019 lineup: Code Vein, the Dark Pictures Anthology Man of Medan, Disney Tsum Tsum Festival, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Okay, all of these have been announced before, so they'll probably show those games on the store, on the show floor. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article. The Epic Games Store exclusive Satisfactory has topped 500,000 sales. I don't really know if that is an honest 500,000 sales, but 500,000 sales is a big number. So I guess Satisfactory is selling pretty well. Not super surprising. It sounded like it was always a good and liked game. Fast Travel Games announces The Curious Tale of the Stolen Parts for virtual reality platforms. Another VR game. Alright. And I'm trying to go through here as quickly as possible. TechRaptor has a trailer for the Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind DLC. If anybody is still interested in Kingdom Hearts 3. Gamatsu has an article, Desperados 3 E3 2019 trailer. Desperados is another series I recognize the name of, but I have no idea what the game really is. Looks like it's a top-down XCOM style strategy game. Trying to get through all of this as quickly as possible, or at least most of this. Alright, that's redundant. We can close that. TechRaptor has an interesting story here. Doom Eternal storytelling finally matches its best-in-class shooting. If that's the truth, that's good news, because frankly I think the Doom 2016 reboot, which I'm still stuck at being halfway through, so far has not told that interesting of a story. So if Doom Eternal is a lot better, that would be great. Here we have a game called Creation and Conquest: The Future War, which looks like it's just an asset flip vehicle versus vehicle combat game. If any of these images would load. Yeah, it looks like there's just way too much on the screen and way too much repetition in the art style. Early access, $9.99. Alright. Just Dance 2020 is waltzing on the stage in November, so more Just Dance, whatever. If you like Just Dance, I guess you're getting more of it. Seems like Ubisoft is not abandoning Just Dance, at least. Let's see, Ubisoft. Tom Clancy's Elite Squad blends franchises together. Apparently there was a couple of Tom Clancy games that were announced, Elite Squad, and then I think the other one is called Quarantine or Infection. Ghost Recon Bleak Point release date is September 5th, 2019, and they have some beta information. That's another Tom Clancy game. So, like, 3 or 4 of them. Come on, I only have about 5 more things that I need to cover. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Microsoft has quietly established a new Age of Empires studio. Let's see, it was established this new Age of Empires studio helmed by veteran producer and former Xbox Game Studio general manager Shannon Loftus. Where is it? Set. That was definitely not a highlighted announcement during the presentation, and it might be just a way of promoting somebody or starting a new studio to lay off people later. Rainbow Six Quarantine announced for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. That was the other Tom Clancy game. So yeah, more Tom Clancy games coming out for me to consider if I ever want to play. Rainbow Six Siege gets new season 2. Gets new season 2 new operatives, or gets new season, 2 new operatives. Rainbow Six Siege still moving along. There is also a rumor happening that right now on Twitch, one of the races that is spelled NAGA in League of Legends or such, people saying that name as you would probably pronounce it are getting banned from Twitch, because Twitch is like scanning what they're saying automatically and it's matching with the N-word. So that's the rumor that's going around right now with Twitch. Thank goodness things like that don't seem to happen with YouTube. I think YouTube just has too much video. TechRaptor has an article here. Rain again with the Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. Like, I don't know if I really want to play Age of Empire, but it might be the one on PC. Oh, and speaking kind of YouTube and the Vox Apocalypse, what was surprisingly underreported here is it seems like the Vox Media attack articles were completely scheduled and timed to go out and cover up the fact that Vox Media staff were in the process of about to stage a one-day walkout over union contracts. So the employees are doing this walkout, and one can only assume that the management told the employees, you have to do this attack article, or the one employee that spearheaded the attack article is more pro-management than anything else, as a cover-up of the fact that this union contract is negotiating. From Sid Alpha's coverage of the Vox Adpocalypse, although it still very much feels like this is a adpocalypse that was going to happen regardless of what Vox said, and they just used it as an excuse. According to Sid Alpha, Vox Media is known to attack their direct competitors, and this seems to be an exact case, and that the employee who spearheaded the Vox Apocalypse previously worked for a organization whose stated goal was to attack Vox Media, and pretty much failed to take down Vox Media. I don't know what would take down Vox Media, considering Rupert Murdoch, I believe, is funding that. So one would assume they have more money than you would ever need. Alright, well, are done with the news that is open right now, if I start scrolling down my Twitter feed, a bunch of more tabs would have to be opened. I know that's going to be the case. And so that's not what needs to be done. More E3 news will happen on Wednesday. More bits of E3. Probably by the time I stream on Wednesday, most of the presentations of E3 will be done. And so then it might just be a case of doing a lot of catch up on Wednesday and maybe even some catch up on Friday. By this time next week, we should be done with the E3 announcements and back on track to talking about games that actually come out and actually have a chance of being purchased and played in the next 6 months. That's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.